5 goals from Lee Matthews and hold on to win pretty well at the Tigers' expense. How did you see it, Bob?
Well, one as great as Lee Matthews was in that first term, it was really a great team effort by the Hawks. They were coming out of their defence with the 3 and 4 running players all coming down together, and they made Richmond look absolute hacks. To Richmond's credit, they came back after that and got within 16 points just 2 minutes into the final term, but then 5 minutes later they were 46 points down as the Hawks blasted away with 5 goals in 5 minutes, 10 goals for the quarter. And in the first and the final term, Hawthorn really showed that they were a power to be reckoned with, and whoever beats Hawthorn will give the flag one heck of
target. Over at the MCG, it was Hawthorn dishing it out to Richmond, although Richmond come back into the play as Jess gets the ball to Bartlett, and he makes no mistake about it.
Out wide. Peyton now in the
this time it's Knights, however, who breaks away for Hawthorn.
He'll run
running right into goal, making no mistake.
No mistake. But easy get the second kick here, and if the umpire really wanted to take it by the
we'll be talking to our guest umpire about that incident a little bit later. Lee and Wallace, and down goes Wallace.
From Mark Lee, and Terry Wallace will take the free kick.
Not the only one that Wallace got yesterday.
Terry Wallace, they've now brought it down to the centre, up towards Judge, who plucks it in with the one hand. Does it beautifully.
The ball down to Judge, and Judge turns and makes no mistake about it.
Great play by the Judge.
This time it's former teammate Martello that finds.
He copped another heavy one, and he's gone
Wallace
down this time.
So Wallace in the hands of trainers.
Who am I with, and what goes?
Past half forward.
Meantime it's Jess knocking the ball away to Bartlett. He's there ready for it. And it's a goal to the Tigers.
Long driving towards Brereton, who takes it on the chest. And David Palmer, inexplicably given away 15 metres.
A little bit of a conversation piece going on there. The umpire gets involved. Has a word or two to say to Knights. Knights wants to argue the point.
They lose it.
And Peter Cameron tells Knights that Knights is to play football and he'll do the umpiring.
Forced forward by Swab, picked up by
Kennedy now with a long shot for Hawthorn.
Has time to steady, puts the long kick forward. Is he online? He is, and another goal. 5 goals in 5 minutes.
Forward, where's Brereton? 1, 2.
Another goal for Hawthorn, again by Kennedy.
Here's another one, and it's another one to Kennedy.
Goal area. Peyton
and Lee Matthews. 5 goals in the first quarter, and here comes his 6th later in the game.
Lee Matthews, 6 goals.
For Richmond, Jim Jess.
Towards Jess.
For Richmond, Michael Roach.
It's a high kick. Roach up from behind takes a nice mark.
For Richmond, Jim Jess.
Punt on its way. Not going to make the distance, but I think the mark will have to be paid to Jimmy Jess.
And
for Hawthorn, Lee Matthews.
Matthews from behind, a great mark.
Onto the left foot, down towards Matthews.
Matthews again for Hawthorn.
Great mark.
1978, and yet 4 years later had played only 22 games. Yet in 1982 he was switched to defence, and in 14 games finally made it. In 1983 he's one of Alan Jean's most consistent backmen and one of the automatic choices at selection. Yesterday against Richmond he gathered his usual 20 possessions, took half a dozen saving marks and added that polish to the Hawthorn backline, which has been the most economical in football in 1983. He impressed Bob Skilton with another honest performance, took best of field votes, and on World of Sport Today talks to the triple Brownlow medalist on our 2-state link-up.
Said it wasn't an overnight success. You just didn't walk into the Hawthorn side. Where did you come from originally, and what position were you hoping to play in league football?
Originally, Bob, I came from Warrigal in '78, and I'd played all my senior football back there at centre half forward, so I thought I'd be playing on the half forward line somewhere, but in the reserves they played me on the half back flank, and from '78 till about '80 I'd played most of my football in the forward line, but then when Alan Jeans arrived, he decided the only place I could be was the back pocket.
Well, when you went to the back pocket, what was it that brought about the real change in Gary Ayres?
I think it's mostly a confidence type thing. When you got guys like Calvin Moore and David O'Halloran beside you, and Rodney Eade and Chris Muir, it tends to make things a little bit easier, I think.
You just mentioned Calvin Moore. Calvin's been there for 14 seasons and around about 290 games. In the press this morning I read where Calvin paid you the compliment of saying you're the best back pocket player he's had alongside you. Does this put a bit of pressure on you living up to that?
It does, Bob, yes. I suppose when you always put in a good game, it's a lot harder to come up the next week because a few people tend to take notice of you, so yes, I think it's always fairly hard.
What about in that period from '78 through to last year? Did you ever feel like giving it away or going somewhere else?
I think every footballer tends to think about that at some stage or another, but I think the best thing is just to keep persevering, and eventually it'll come your way with a lot of hard work, I think.
That same hard work and perseverance, the Hawthorn backline, particularly in the first term yesterday, did you feel like it was going to be a very one-sided game in that first quarter?
Not really, Bob, because Richmond's beaten us fairly easy in the 2 games that we've played them. So I thought it'd be fairly close all day, and then we just got the breaks in the last quarter, and everything seemed to go away with that 10-goal burst.
What about next week? You've got North Melbourne coming up, and they won by 51 points at the encounter early in the season. How important is it from the players' aspect that you win this return one before the finals?
Very important, because we're looking at getting top spot, and now that Michael Tuck's out for a few weeks, that might tend to make things a bit easier for him if we can have that extra week off, I'd say.
What about yourself? I don't think you played against North early in the year, did you? How many games did you miss at that stage?
I missed 5 with a pulled thigh muscle, Bob, so no, I never played that day.
Did the break mid-season, do you think, in some respects, it's a long season, did that 5 weeks break maybe help you come back with renewed energy and such?
I think it has, because even though you're playing the 22-day games, you've also got 4 or 5 practice matches at the start of the year, and then if you do reasonably well, you've got the final series as well. So I think it's, it's not a bad idea sometimes.
Well, Gary, congratulations on your game yesterday. Not just yesterday, but right throughout this season. You're one of the reasons that Hawthorn are up where they are at the present moment.
Thanks, Bob.
Gary, we have the Thomas Hardy Grand Reserve champagne for you, and we also have a shirt from Solways and a tighter match.
Thanks, Jeff.
Both from Solways.
So.
Dermot Brereton for Hawthorn.
Looking for Brereton. He takes the mark, plays on straight away, straightens up, goes goalward. No mistake about that. Brereton kicks his...
Ken Judge for Hawthorn.
Judge does it well. Swings round, Knight shepherds it through.
John Kennedy for Hawthorn.
Forced forward by Swab, picked up by Kennedy. Kennedy now has time to steady, puts the long kick forward. Is he online? He is, and another goal. 5 goals. Jess.
Graham Landy for Richmond.
A hand pass across to Landy. It's a beautiful goal by Landy after Winton put the hand pass forward.
Burke and Alan Jeans now in club corner. Bob Skilton asking questions.
Alan, 8 goals in the first term, of which Matthews kicked 5, 10 in the final term. What happened in between?
Well, I think we lost a little bit of the ascendancy. I think full credit to Richmond. They didn't give up. They were quite keen to win the game, and you know, Richmond's still quite a good side. They're playing in the night grand final on Tuesday night, and whilst they haven't had a good season, they're still capable of playing quite good football, and a few of their runners got going in that second and third quarter, and they were quite difficult to handle.
That burst of Richmond in that first quarter really shell-shocked the side a bit. Francis, why was it so easy for Hawthorn to take the ball out of your forward line? Their defence was coming out in 3s and 4s.
Oh, I just thought that the difference in the first quarter was mainly the way the ball was used, Bob. David Palm struggled early against Lee Matthews, who was a recipient of a couple of good kicks. In addition, not only did Lee get his hands on the ball, but he also kicked very straight, and that was really the difference in the game up to half-time, I felt, the way that the ball was used by both sides.
Alan, just how much do you need Richard Loveridge back to the form that he was in last year?
Oh yes, we're not overburdened with quick small players. Richard had a very good year last year. Unfortunately, this year he hasn't maintained the same form, but every indication last Sunday that he was playing very well, and he was getting back to his top form again when he unfortunately he was injured.
How did you see the form of Grant Fowler in the reserves yesterday?
Unfortunately, I didn't see much of the seconds yesterday. I usually watch the first half, but there was a bit of a doubt on Mew, who lives in Rosebud, and by the time we got him to the ground and gave him a test, I missed most of the first half, so I didn't see much of the game, but every indication from the people that did watch the game that he looks that he'll be an acquisition to us in that area there, but he just lacks a bit of match practice at this stage.
Francis, there's only 5 weeks to go and Richmond can't make it. How do you rate Hawthorn?
Oh, I think they're a pretty good side, Bob. I think ultimately their chances will be built around their ability to keep all their best players on the ground. I think that this year's been so even that one player fit or unfit, could very well make the difference. And I think in Hawthorn's case, if all their good players are fit, they'll take some stopping.
How worried does it make you, Francis, that last year playing off in the grand final, with St Kilda winning 3 in a row, very close to the wooden spoon?
Yes, that's true, Bob.
Does it worry you that this could happen?
Well, we've just got to worry about our own performances and forget about St Kilda, Bob. And, I mean, we've just got to take things week by week, and I'm quite sure that if we play as well as what we're capable of playing and build on what we've achieved over the last 6 or 7 weeks, where we've won something like 5 out of 8 now, we'll get further up the ladder than what we are now.
You've got the Sterling Cup on Tuesday night, strong as can be?
Well, that'll be depend on how some fellas come up after yesterday's game, Bob, but we'll be picking a side that we hope can win, and it'll be our best side available, as usual.
Thanks, Francis. Thanks, Alan.
Alan and Francis, we have the Patna orange juice for both of you. We have the Weekender ham from Mayfair, also the Frankfurts too from Mayfair, and the tasty vintage cheese from Valentine. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Jack.
Canberra Television Club Awards, the votes by Bob Skilton for yesterday's match at the MCG, and the progressive figures for Richmond and Hawthorn. Lee the leader by 1 vote from Rioli and Landy at Richmond, and Terry Wallace the leader at Hawthorn in the Canberra Television Club Awards.
Well, not really, Ron, because Richmond did get back within 16 points, but maybe they used up all of their energy to get back. But in that first quarter, Hawthorn were absolutely magnificent. They had Lee Matthews in typical Matthews form, kicking 5 goals in that first term, 4 against David Palm, and then Jet came down. But I wasn't really critical of Palm because the way the ball was coming down the ground, it was a Hawthorn defence. And we see there Eade coming away, hitting Deep Domenico on the chest, and Deep Domenico then putting it down to Matthews. And it was the type of football that almost nobody could have stopped. Their defence were running out in 3s and 4s, and Hawthorn caught Richmond unawares early in the piece. They threw Buckenara into the centre, lining up alongside Rioli, and Wallace almost became a ruck rover, but then became the centre man once it got down to business again, and Buckenara went wherever he liked. But it meant that Richmond had Hawthorn, I should say, had a spare man in defence, and they used that spare man to perfection. Their teamwork with whenever Ayres took a mark, he had Calvin Moore, Green, Eade, all of these players streaming past them, not to mention Mew, who at centre-half back. The 2 key forward positions for Richmond, Jess and Roach, up to half-time, were completely non-existent because of the great play by Chris Mew at centre-half back and Calvin Moore at full-back. But to Richmond's credit, from quarter-time onwards, they did fight their way back into the game, and 2 minutes into the final term they had got within 16 points when Kevin Bartlett snapped a goal. But in the next 5 minutes it was 5 goals from Hawthorn. John Kennedy back on the ground at half forward, kicked a couple, and Dermot Brereton came into things, and at some stage right throughout the day, a Hawthorn player really contributed and did the thing he wanted. Mark Lee was a great player for the Tigers and certainly dominated the ruck throughout the game, but Ian Payton, as usual, was not disgraced and certainly did his share of work. There's Graham Landy around the ground, was a fine player, and Maurice Rioli, of course, another one of those Western Australians. He was a great player up till half-time, and he and Wallace really were not opponents throughout the day, because after half-time, David Polkinghorne went everywhere that Rioli went, and Wallace almost became a ruck rover. But it was a fine performance by the Hawks.
Your votes for yesterday's game, Bob?
I give 1 vote to Graham Landy. I felt that his performance in the losing side, he never gave up trying right throughout and won numerous kicks himself. 2 votes there I gave to Calvin Moore at full-back. Whether it be Jimmy Jess or Michael Roach, he put them out of business and was a great player himself. And alongside him, 3 votes I gave to Gary Ayres. He certainly has come of age, a great mark, a really solid defender, and there's a perfect shot of the type of mark that Gary Ayres does take throughout a game. And he is, as Calvin Moore apparently did say last night, one of the...
We had a bad patch early in the year. We lost 4 out of 5. I think the players really took it upon themselves to lift themselves out of that and fight back hard. And, you know, I think this year the side's probably got a little bit more experience with the younger guys coming up and played 20 to 30 games and knowing what it's all about. So I think probably a bit more experience on their shoulders at the moment.
Has your role changed with Hawthorn since that interstate game in Perth? Are you allowed more freedom?
Well, a little bit, I think, you know, especially now, I think with Tucky probably being out for 3 or 4 weeks with his broken finger. So I think I've got a big job in the next 3 or 4 weeks to improve my fitness and run on the ball. So it has changed a little bit, yeah.
And talking about your fitness, I believe you're going to have your knees, both knees scraped after the season. Just how bad are they?
Well, it's just an annoying problem at the moment. It's not restricting me from playing any games, but it does hamper me in some of the parts of the game that I like to do, like my marking at the moment. If I hurt them during the game, I can't jump for the ball too much. But it does restrict me a little bit. But I'd like to be able to get them right at the end of the year. Yeah.
I know it's only early days yet, but do you intend going back to Western Australia to complete your football career?
I would like to go back and finish off there, but I'm just trying to win a premiership here with Hawthorn, and if we do win a premiership, well, maybe I'll think about it.
Gary, how important was it for you to win an All-Australian blazer in Perth?
Well, that was at the start of the year. I think it's important for a player to set a goal for himself, or goals for himself, and I set myself, if I could get a game in the state game, to get an All-Australian blazer, and it's just one of those things that I really did have a burning desire to get.